This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and today I'm going to talk through this idea that I kind of came across a couple of weeks back when I was talking to someone at one of my seminars, and I was explaining, like, as a coach, it's the whole idea is that good trainers have good answers, but good coaches have good questions, right? And there's a really important distinction to be made in that, and the reason being is because sometimes by just providing an answer for somebody, you actually take away their win, right? And this is really crucial because, as a coach or as any individual, and you'll see how this leads into every single individual, but as a coach, it's your job to build people, not to build a codependency with people. And so it may be nice in the moment to have the answer and be the person that people look up to and lean upon and all that kind of shit. But it's actually just fucking rubbish, really, in the long run. It doesn't mean that every now and again you shouldn't provide an answer, because you should. A good coach should just know when to provide that answer, right? And so what I'm getting at here is that the difference between knowing the answer to something and knowing the question is that the client or the individual or every single one of us, really, what it comes down to, every single one of us, we're not looking for answers. You don't go out there looking for answers, right? We should go out there looking for questions. And then over time, we get better at seeing those questions ourselves and asking ourselves those questions, because the answers that we need are actually inside. So it's not the answers that we seek, it's the questions that we seek. And this is a really big, important distinction, because every single fucking day, we ask ourselves questions. Our whole day is literally just a whole bunch of questions. And so this is why you might see some people, I think Steve's kind of idea of that, if he just wears clothes every single week, then he doesn't have to have this question of what am I going to wear today? And that's already some decision fatigue. It's a reason why lunches and all those meals and all that kind of stuff is the same. So it's not another question that the person has to answer, because it comes under decision fatigue. And so for us, it's like within every single aspect of our lives, if we shifted from trying to find answers to, like, for example, what makes me happy? Maybe it's not that you can't find the answer to that. Maybe it's you're not asking the right question. And maybe the question should be, what are the things I do that brings the most joy to my life, right? And then from there, it's like, okay, well, that's playing with my children and riding horses and reading. It's like, okay, well, they're like, but I can't do that for a career. It's like, sure, okay, maybe not, write it off. But the idea is, like, maybe going, how can I spend more of my life doing those things? And so what this really is about is going, it's not the answers you seek, it's the questions. And how can we ask ourselves better questions? And the more resourceful type of questions we ask ourselves, the more resourceful our answers get. And they unlock parts of us that we didn't know were there, right? Just imagine, like, the questions are the keys to the rooms that you want access to. Okay, the questions are the keys to the room you want access to. And what people are doing is walking around wanting access to this room, but not realizing that they need the question in order to get into it. And so they actually don't even know that. They don't think the room is inside them, and it is. That room is inside you because it has all the answers. The problem is that sometimes the answers that you do seek are so far that you have to go through, like, so far deep that you have to go through so many rooms to get there. So you could imagine that asking a question unlocks a room, and you walk into that room and you see what's in that room, and you start to understand everything that's in that room. And then you can ask another question, and that leads to the next room. But you aren't able to skip rooms. Now, I don't know how laid or detailed this metaphor analogy can go, but what it means is that the more you ask questions and you genuinely, consciously ask yourself a question, wanting to know the answer and not separating it as good and bad, separating it as it just is. The truth will be whatever the truth is, right? And because of that, when you lean into that, you start to see things I mentioned about things being light and dark rather than good and bad, because the dark parts of us are good in certain moments and the light parts of us are bad in certain moments. So it's not good and bad, it's light and dark. And so when we actually ask ourselves questions and we're not emotionally invested in there to being some sort of nice or good response, this is the whole idea of going, well, I'm a good person. It's like, yeah, but you're capable of evil. No, I'm not. It's like, fuck off. Of course you are. Everyone is, right? A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very, very dangerous man that has it under voluntary control. And when we understand that, we understand that there is no good and bad. There is light and dark. And we get to see it all and then make a choice, right? That's the power. That's what we have. And asking questions and asking better questions and seeing those answers, then asking better questions on top of that and seeing those answers, and asking questions and seeing those answers, we start to really get to like deeper levels and deeper layers of our own self. And so this is when people go, I think I know why I do what I do. It's like, well, I don't know if you do. I'm just not sure if you know why. And it's not saying I doubt you. It's like, you know what you do up to the point of what you know. But how much of what you do is judged by what you don't know? How much of it lives in your unconscious? And so whenever you find yourself, this is what I consider, this is what I recommend you to consider. Whenever you find yourself asking for answers to particular questions and you're not getting them, maybe it's not the right question. Maybe the question could be different. And maybe you could ask, okay, if I could reframe this question, what would that sound like? Or what could that look like? If I could ask this question in a different way, how could that be, right? And when we start to do this, we start to shift a question from why can't I lose weight to how can I be happy with my body? What is it I want to do with my body? What is it I want to do with my life? And we start to see these questions actually yield significantly more depth to it and more resources. And so it's like, why am I unhappy in my job? Why do I fucking hate my job? This is a shitty level 1 question, right? Why do I fucking hate my job? Why do I have to do this? It's like, well, you don't have to do it. You get to, right? It's like, well, I hate it. It's like, okay, is that a question? No, it's a problem. Right. Well, all problems are questions. So what's your question? Well, how can I not hate it? It's like, well, maybe not do it. They're like, well, that's not a possibility. It's like, okay, if that's not a possibility, what could be a possibility? It's like, well, I suppose I could probably go part-time and start studying. It's like, right, okay, what would you? But that wouldn't work. It's like, okay, let's hypothetically, let's play with it and float with it and say that it could work. What could that possibly look like? And all of a sudden, we end up sort of, it's not exactly meta questioning, because there's certain questions that are meta questions, meta meaning like next layer up. But what it does do, it allows us to unpeel and unravel our own self to lead ourselves to an answer. And this is what I recommend with coaching. This is why I do recommend coaching. And this is why it's beneficial for me with my coach and the mentors that I've had, is that they don't have the answers. I'm not going to them for the answers. I'm going to them for them to help me lead myself to a question that's going to unlock a deeper understanding of myself, right? And that's why when you listen to my podcast, you get me. You don't get Dave the podcaster, you get Dave. Dave podcasts. That's an identity thing, rather than going, this is what I think people want to hear. How do I get more listens to or downloads or this or that? It's just like, just fucking enjoy it. Would you be okay? This is a question I ask myself. Would you be okay if no one ever downloaded it? And I was like, yes. I was like, then you're doing it for the right reason. And that was one of the distinguishing moments. That was a question. Leading up to that, it was like, well, what happens if no one downloads it? Yada, yada. You know, what happens if people don't like it? What happens if people like berate me on social media? It's all that sort of stuff. And it's like, right, none of that matters. It was terrible questions, because none of them had anything to do with the reality that I was currently living in. They're all possibilities, not probabilities. And I said, okay, if I was to release this podcast, would I be okay? Personal question, nothing to do with external circumstances. Would I be okay with no one downloading it? And I was like, yes. It's like, then you should do it. And that was the way that I could find my own answer, because now I'm doing it for a genuine, authentic reason, as opposed to trying to show up in the world by a way that I think people would like to see me. And that's a big difference. And how often do people do that in their day-to-day life? I think that's a good question. So team, what I'm getting at here, I'm going to finish the podcast on this, is that maybe it's not the answers that you're seeking. Maybe it's the questions. And if it is, how could you reframe those questions to be more of use for you? And what could that look like? Team, I'm done. Thank you very much. This is, I think it's podcast 115. My book, my pre-orders for my book finishes up on the 17th of July, very soon. I'm just below 300 pre-sales. It would mean the world to me if you could jump on the link in the comments or on my Facebook, if we're friends, or on my Instagram, if we're friends on there, say hello. Otherwise, and grab a copy. It would mean the world, so I can get out to as many publishers as I can to get this book done. Otherwise, team, that's it. I'm done. Thank you very much for listening. And if you found this beneficial and you know someone else that would find it beneficial, it would mean the world to me. Again, the world. If you would pass it on to them, share the love, share the message. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza. Kick today in the dick. Slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
Happiness to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.